नमस्ते। विद्या वितर्को विज्ञानम स्मृतिर तत्परता क्रिया यस्य इति षड्गुणास्तस्य न साध्यम अतिवर्तते. This is said by Maharshi Charak around 3000 years back. Means when any Vaidya has Vidya, Vitarka, Vijnan, Smruti, Tatparta and Kriya. These 6 qualities he will never fail in medical practice. Here, first is Vidya, means Jnana. So, one should update and upgrade his knowledge constantly. So, moving on this path, PDA has started study circle regularly. Today, we have organized 2 sessions in this webinar. First, I, Dr. Sharvari Aulaskar, welcome you on behalf of Pune Doctors Association and DigiShield Software Company. In first session, Dr. Yogesh Somwanshi sir enlightened us on primary treatment on trauma patient in OPD. And in second session, Mr. Deepen will introduce us a doctor-friendly app developed by DigiShield Software, which is very helpful for us in current situation. Now, I request PDA Secretary Dr. Ramesh Mohite sir to talk some words.
नमस्कार, डॉक्टर रमेश मोहिते, पुणे डॉक्टर असोसिएशन सेक्रेटरी. आपणा सर्वांचे आजच्या या पीडी सर्कल मध्ये सहर्ष स्वागत. आजच्या या लेक्चर मध्ये आज ऑर्थोपेडिक हा विषय घेतलेला आहे. यामध्ये आपण आदरणीय डॉक्टर योगेश सोमवंशी सर यांचा आज लेक्चर ठेवलेला आहे. त्यांचं मी पीडीए तर्फे सहर्ष स्वागत करतो. आजच्या या महामारीमध्ये ही आपले पीडीचे कार्यक्रम चालू आहेत. सर्वात महत्त्वाचे म्हणजे आपण पीडीएचे आय कार्ड तयार करायला काम घेतलेलं आहे. त्यामध्ये 500 पर्यंत आपण तयार केलेले आहे. आणि ज्यांना पीडीएचे आय कार्ड माहिती पाठवली नाही त्यांनी लवकरात लवकर पाठवायचे, कारण हे पीडीएचे आय कार्ड आपण नंतर एखादी सीएमई असेल, कॉन्फरन्स असेल, त्यामध्ये आपण त्यांना ते कंपल्सरी करणार आहोत. तर 500 पर्यंत आपण तयार केलेले, बाकीच्यांनी लवकरात लवकर ही माहिती पाठवायची आहे. त्याचप्रमाणे आपण मध्ये प्रत्येक डॉक्टरांच्या ओपीडी मध्ये सूचना पत्रक तयार केलेले आहे. ते पण बऱ्याच जणांना मिळाले आहेत. ज्यांना मिळाले नसतील त्यांनी आपल्या ऑफिस मधून घेऊन जायचे सूचना पत्रक आणि दरपत्रक. तसेच दरवर्षीप्रमाणे आपण डॉक्टर्स डे पण साजरा करतो. 1 जुलै हा डॉक्टर्स डे. तर या रविवारी 5 तारखेला सुद्धा आपण नेहमीप्रमाणे डॉक्टर्स डे साजरा करीत आहोत. त्यामध्ये CCMPचे जे काय आपले डॉक्टर पीडीएचे असतील त्यांनी या उत्तीर्ण झाले त्यांचा आपण सत्कार करीत आहोत. तसेच आपण मध्ये ऑनलाईन चित्रकला स्पर्धा घेतली. त्यामध्ये आपल्या पीडीएच्या सदस्यांच्या मुलांनी हिरिरीने भाग घेतला आणि त्याच्यामध्ये जे काही विजेते आहेत त्यांचाही आपण सत्कार या रविवारी डॉक्टर्स डेच्या निमित्ताने आपण करणार आहोत. आणि त्याच दिवशी गुरुपौर्णिमा सुद्धा आहे. गुरुपौर्णिमेनिमित्ताने पण आपण डॉक्टर राम साठे सर यांचे आपण व्याख्यान ठेवलेले आहे आणि गुरुजनांचाही आपण सत्कार करीत आहोत. अशा प्रकारे आपण हे पीडीएचं काम या लॉकडाऊन काळामध्ये पण अतिशय सुंदरपणे आणि नॉनस्टॉप चालू आहे. धन्यवाद.
Now I request Dr. Mande to introduce Somwanshi sir.
Thank you, Dr. Aulaskar madam. Good evening, friends. First of all, I thank PDA for giving me a chance as a coordinator for this wonderful webinar. And the topic for this webinar is primary treatment of trauma patient in OPD, which is very useful, for all of us in day-to-day practice. And for this, we have got eminent speaker, Dr. Yogesh Somwanshi sir. First, I will introduce sir. Sir has done MBBS from MGM Medical College, Aurangabad, and completed his diploma in orthopedics from YCM Hospital, Pimpri. Presently, sir working as consultant orthopedic surgeon at Bone Shine Clinic for orthopedic and physiotherapy at Atharva Riaz Plaza, Pune, Satara. Also, sir is attached to various hospitals like Apollo Hospital, Chintamani Hospital, Ram Nursing Home, Chintamani Hospital, Our Hospital, and Jeevandhara Hospital. Sir has area of interest in mostly trauma patients and joint replacement. With this, may I request Dr. Yogesh Somwanshi sir to deliver his speech. Thank you.
Very thankful to Dr. Mande sir. Okay, done. Let's begin. So, in our day-to-day practice, in our OPDs, we encounter many trauma patients. Every now and then, everyone in pediatric patients or some geriatric patients or some road traffic accidents or household trauma. Any trauma patients we get in our OPD, there is a lot of problems in dealing with the day-to-day practice of management of these trauma patients. Now we will here deal with these all issues. We will try to deal with an interactive fashion, and the objectives for this is to know the type of injury, what type of injury we are dealing with, whether it is just a soft tissue injury or it is some vascular, neurovascular or bony injury. Second thing, the extent of injury. Extent means to what level the injury has increased, so that I can deal here only, or I just can refer the patient forward so that complication doesn't happen. Now at OPD level, what are the primary management modalities that we can undergo or we can start with, and in what sequence we should do it, what should be done, what not should be done. We will have all the discussion in this thing. Now, this primary management is included by RICE therapy. What is that RICE therapy? You must be knowing all these things, but still we will have a to the point discussion on all these issues. Now, the biggest dilemma is whether this patient can wait, or can I treat this patient at my OPD, or should I refer it at that point, or when? That is the biggest dilemma. So how to sort out this dilemma, we will think of this issue also. And first and foremost things, the red flag signs. What are the red flag signs? Means these are the issues which should be dealt in an emergency fashion. Okay, so the red flag signs should be known to each and everyone. So let's start with the journey with our type of injuries. We will start with soft tissue injuries. Everyone must have encountered in their whole life this thing. What is this? This is abrasion. खरचटणं ज्याला म्हणतो आपण ते. आता खरचटलेला पेशंट आल्यावर काय करायला पाहिजे? साधी सोपी इंजुरी आहे, पण कधी कधी खूप त्रासिक असते, भयंकर पेनफुल असते. Why it is painful? Because only the superficial nerve endings are involved in this. That's why dressing and redressing, all these things are very, very painful. What should be done to these injuries? Just wash it thoroughly with normal saline and apply a water-soluble ointment on it, and just a chlorhexidine or a paraffin gauze should be applied, and forget it. It should be kept open to get treated very well. Abrasions heal well by just keeping it open. Only some abrasions which are having deeper connections should be dressed for 1 or twice. After that, forget it. It should be kept open, and they are very good to heal when kept open. Okay, abrasions. Now, second thing, mukka maar laglay. That is contusions. What are contusions? Contusions are the blackish, bluish discoloration. You may call it bruises. Okay, so contusions. Now, this patch of contusion may not be at the site of injury itself, or it can be at another place or at some dependent portion where the hematoma has gone down. Okay, so be aware of this contusion part, because it denotes a deeper and bigger injury. So contusions are to be treated with ice fomentations. Ice fomentation for 2 to 5 days are very much necessary to reduce the swelling, to reduce the discoloration, and meanwhile investigate it for deeper injuries like muscle injury or muscle tear or some bony injury. Okay. Now, third thing, incised wound or incision. We know surgical incisions, but in day-to-day life also, we get many incised wounds, like wound with a knife in kitchen, or children playing with sharp objects. In road traffic accidents also, we can get sharp incised wounds. These wounds typically bleed profusely. Why? Because all the blood vessels in the skin and subcutaneous tissue, they are sharply cut and they are not having time to get it constricted. That's why you get very much bleeding. Now, these are very less contaminated wounds. Because of the sharp injury, there is less contamination compared to other injuries. So, just wash it and have a compression on this to stop the wound. Just compression for 5 to 7 minutes. That is till your bleeding time overs and your clotting time sets in. So, till the blood vessels gets clotted, you should just press it to stop the bleeding. If it is a long wound, if it is, it cannot be just closed by dressing, you can suture it with a continuous suture. And the alignment is perfectly all right. So these wounds heal very well with minimal scarring. So incised wounds are the wounds which heal better by far any other wounds compared to. Okay. So incised wounds, stop the bleeding, close it, forget it. Okay. Now, the most deepest wound or deeper wounds are skin lacerations. We must encounter the terminology CLW. What is that CLW? Contused means there is contusion surrounding, abraded skin edges. Laceration, it is cut in a very ragged fashion. It is not a clean cut incised wound. These wounds are typically happened after a road traffic accident or head injuries or falling weight on the body. These type of wounds we get. These are called as lacerations. They are the deeper wounds. You should know the depth of this wound to know what else has got injured rather than just the skin and subcutaneous tissues. These wounds typically require suturing and closure at earliest because the deeper tissues are exposed in this type of wounds. Now, going deeper to that, we are having muscle injuries. So if muscle is encountered, just wash the wound and dress it and refer it, because you cannot suture muscles. For a muscle injury or a muscle cut, it should be explored, debrided, and just the fascia of the muscle should be closed along with other things, and it should be splinted nicely with a slab so that the muscle do not contract and the stitches doesn't open up. So muscle injuries are bigger injuries, and there is always a chance of getting a hematoma there, and you can land up in tight compartment syndromes. So muscle injuries, be aware of these injuries. Now, deep to that or continuation with the muscles, you got tendons. Now, how to know that if any tendon is injured or not, ruptured or not, cut or not? There is squeeze test. Just squeeze the muscles. Just squeeze the muscles. If a tendon is cut, you will not get any passive movement in the fingers or toes. That is a squeeze test. Second thing, just ask the patient to do the movements. If any one finger is not giving movement, that means the tendon to that finger has been cut. So tendon injuries. Now, the severe injuries are nerve injuries and vascular injuries. These two injuries we cannot treat at the OPD level. They must be referred, and some plastic surgeons or vascular surgeons are needed to treat these kind of injuries. Now, at OPD level, what you can do? You can assess for the nerve injury by check of sensation. If this is the palm, this is the ulnar side, the little finger side is ulnar side. So if the sensations are intact on this side, your ulnar nerve is okay. Sensation on the thumb side, if they are intact, then your median nerve is okay. Now on the back side, if this first web space on dorsal side, the sensations are intact, means your radial nerve is okay. That's how you check these nerves in upper limbs. In lower limbs, according to dermatome, you can check the sensations for nerve injuries. Now for vascular injuries, yes, they are very crucial to treat within some time period, say 6 hours to 12 hours max. Within 6 hours, some arteries should be get connected so that the blood supply will regain. Okay, now how to see the vascular injury or vascular compromise? Capillary refill. Just press the nail bed, it will become white, leave it. It will again become red within 2 seconds. So 2 seconds is the capillary refill time. If it is more than 2 seconds, there is vascular compromise. Very simple test to do. Okay. And if it refills within 2 seconds, you are okay with. The blood supply is there till the ends of the fingers or toes. Now, another thing is you can check pulsations. But many of the time there is huge swelling. You cannot palpate the arteries, distal arteries, though they are superficial, you may not. Or you may have some slag or something applied there, you cannot check. So in that case, you can just apply your SpO2 monitor probe, portable one, you can apply and you can see the pattern. If the pulsations are there, that means the blood supply is there and arterial pulsations are going to the full extent. If it doesn't happen, if it shows reduced oxygen saturation less than say 90%, 80%, that means there is some vascular compromise which should be dealt to the earliest. Okay. Now bony injuries or fracture, what we treat daily. What are the signs of a fracture? You may see a large swelling there. Sometimes you may not see that. So swelling is not the only sign. Contusion, blackish, bluish discolorations after 2 to 3 days, but may not be earliest sign. Okay, but it can be there. Now, what are the cardinal signs of fracture? That these two are present means there is a fracture. First is deformity. You can see a limb is deformed. The skin is broken. You can see the broken edges of the fracture. Definitely there is fracture. There is no confusion in that. Okay, so deformity. Deformity is there means there is injury to the structural component of the body, and that is the bone. Now, second is not always you get a deformity. If there is a very small undisplaced fracture, you may not get deformity, but you can have a point tenderness to that particular bone. So point tenderness, always check where the patient doesn't have any pain. From that to the painful side, just check with a fingertip so that there will be a point tenderness to the bone. If there is no point tenderness, if it is a vague pain all over, there may not be a fracture. Now, loss of movement. If there is fracture, the patient cannot move the distal joints properly. So loss of movement is again a sign for the fracture. But these two, deformity and point tenderness to bone, leads to your diagnosis. So always check for these things. Now, how to know the extent of injury? How much surface area is involved of the body? Only abrasions are present, no deeper injuries, but whole of the body is, or more than 50% of the body is having abrasions. You will have a tremendous body fluid loss and patient can land up in shock. And there is a huge surface area where the infection can set in. So even abrasions can be life-threatening if the surface area is more. So to know the surface area, how much surface is involved in this injury. Now, second thing, just a puncture wound is there, but how deep it is, whether it is skin deep, whether it is subcutaneous tissue deep, whether it is muscle deep, tendon deep, or bone deep. Nothing deeper than bone. Bone is the deepest structure. So how much deep the injury is, you should know it. You should check it to know the extent of injury. You should always check distal circulation. I have told you the three things: the SpO2 monitoring, the pulsations, and the finger test, that is capillary refill. Okay, so distal circulation you should check. Now distal movements. The movements should always be normal. on both the hands, and they should be equal on both the hands. If there is a reduced, you can feel that this is a normal movement, or the patient has injury, that's why he is not doing because of pain. You should compare always with the uninjured arm, whether the movements are equal. If they are not equal, that means there is deeper injury involved, and that should be known. Then distal sensations, always check for sensations. Sensation loss will tell us about the neurological structures involved, maybe a superficial nerve or a big nerve, or maybe some injury to the spine or the peripheral nerves. To know all these things, this distal circulation, distal movements, and distal sensation, checking all these things will tell you how much extensive the injury is. Now you have known the type of injury, what extent the injury has done, now how to manage it, what to be done to the earliest. Now we will go to the primary management. The RICE therapy. What is this RICE therapy? R stands for rest. The injured part should be always rested. The upper limbs, you can make splints at your OPD level. You may not have some POPs or slabs readily available there, but you can make from your whatever available with you, you can make a slab or a splint there, and you can apply it so that the extent of injury doesn't increases. Now, how to do with this? You can see this image. See this, what is been used? You can see that there is a ruler is used, a pillow is used, a folded newspaper is used, and it is tied on both the places, above and below, or proximal and distal to the injured limb, and it is giving a nice splinting. So rest is done by splinting, whatever is available with you. Or if you have access to the braces, you can just write down a brace, and the relatives can bring a brace to support the injured limb. It reduces the pain, it reduces the bleeding and swelling. The most important thing is it prevents further soft tissue damage. If the soft tissue damage, if that injured part is moving, then the soft tissue damage will be further accentuated. And it also prevents the vascular damage. If there is too much kinking of the vessels, they may get in spasm or may get torn, and that is a catastrophe. You should avoid that. What to splints? Any suspected fracture, dislocation, tendon rupture, you should splint it. Giving rest to an injured limb is a godly work. Patient will have a less pain. Okay. Now, if there is deformed wound and you want to splint, so if the deformity is like this, you cannot splint it in this plane, but you can splint in another plane. Always splint it. Never ever try to correct the deformity at there. Without doing x-rays or further investigation, it is not advisable to correct a deformity. If it is a dislocation also, splint it in that dislocated position only. Do not try to correct it unless and until you see. It may not be just a dislocation, it may be a fracture dislocation, and while correcting, you may displace that fracture. So, whatever deformity it is, keep the position as it is, just splint it and refer it. If it is a too much deformed thing, you cannot do anything in the OPD level. You should refer that patient. Now, I is for ice, and to ourselves, injections also. So any swelling, soft tissue injury with swelling should be treated with ice fomentation. Advise each and every trauma patient, whether he is having a wound or not. If there is wound also, you can, above the dressing, you can have an ice fomentation. So ice fomentation is must. How to give ice fomentation? We can have ice cube in our fridge. Then we can have an ice pack also. But applying directly to the skin may cause skin irritation or frostbite. So never apply direct the ice to the skin. So how to apply? keep it in a plastic bag as shown in the image. You can see the image that it is applied inside the, it is taken inside the plastic bag and applied on the skin, which is covered, So if you don't have this, apply the ice pack in say in a hanky or a cloth and then apply it. Do not apply directly. How much time I should apply it? For half an hour together? No. For continuously, not more than 5 to 10 minutes. 5 to 10 minutes is much more. But frequency should be there. 5 minutes every hour is more helpful than just half an hour at a stretch. Okay? So frequency is important, not the extent of time. So every hour or every 2 hours, you should have ice fomentation. Remember, do not apply directly. Now, what are the injections? For injection also. What are the injections you want to give there? First, tetanus toxoid is must in any injury. In case of pediatric patients, just inquire when below 10 years, when they have taken their dose. They are having DPT booster doses. So when they have taken at 5 years or 10 years, whether they have taken or not. If they haven't taken it, advise them to take it along with other things, just not the tetanus toxoid. In elderly patients, inquire them whether they haven't taken in last 6 months. If they haven't, just give tetanus toxoid. Even the status is not known, there is no harm in giving tetanus toxoid. In case of a severe or massive injury, you can give globulins also, that is state globe, according to the weight of the patient. Now, tetanus is over. Prophylactically, second is analgesic. Analgesic injections, now there is a bit controversial whether to give an injection in an OPD level or what. So if the patient is not known to have any hypersensitivity to any NSAIDs, you can give a good acting analgesic injection like a diclofenac. Aqueous would be helpful. Intramuscular, you can give it. It gives very good pain relief. Diclofenac is preferred. Why? Because it is having COX-1 and COX-2, both the actions, and both the actions are COX-1 and COX-2 are balanced. That's why it gives a good. Okay, so the diclofenac is having balanced COX-1 and COX-2. That's why it is very good in analgesia also and anti-inflammatory action also. So diclofenac is preferred analgesic in children. Say below 5 years, paracetamol is the analgesic of choice. 5 to 10 years, you can add ibuprofen to that. Ibupara is a very good analgesic. After 10 years, you can give diclofenac in selected dose. Say after 50 or 60 of age, these patients also, they are vulnerable for diclofenac. Then again switch to say IV paracetamol or extended release paracetamol. Paracetamol is the safest one. Inquire always about hypersensitivities and kidney damage or history of asthmatic attacks before giving any NSAIDs. Okay. Now antibiotics. If there is a huge injury, deeper injuries, you can give IV antibiotics, or smaller cuts and bruises, you can give oral antibiotics. Now the preferred antibiotics should be broad spectrum and cover the regular microgens or pathogens which are present on the skin, and they are mainly Staphylococcus and Streptococcus, that is gram positive. So the antibiotics should be broad spectrum at least to cover both gram positive and gram negative, or if you want a separate gram negative, then good gram positive like cefuroxime or cefotaxime, plus you can add gentamicin or amikacin. And if there is a lot of contamination and you expect dirt and mud inside the wound, despite you clean it, then add a metronidazole or anaerobic prophylaxis should be given. Mind you, the bacteria which are gone inside any wound starts colonizing after 6 hours. So antibiotic given within 6 hours of injury will give you the most satisfactory results. After 6 hours, they may form a biofilm there, and your antibiotic is not penetrating that biofilm, and they will definitely cause some further damage to the soft tissue, and debridement, thorough debridements and sequential debridements will be needed to get rid of all these things. Now, there is always a question from the patients. गरम शेकू का बर्फानी शेकू? कुठे गरम शेकायला पाहिजे, कुठे बर्फानी शेकायला पाहिजे? Heat or ice? What you should prescribe to whom? Now just remember one thing, any acute conditions like trauma, like acute synovitis, like gouty attacks, like acute spasm of the muscles, in acute conditions, ice is helpful. Acute conditions, ice. Chronic conditions, knee pain since years, back pain since months, you can apply heat. Or an injured part, after 1 month, you can apply heat, because ice decreases the blood supply or cause constriction. It is physics, cause constriction, and heat increases the blood supply and increases capillary permeability. So the heat decreases the stiffness, and the ice, it decreases the swelling or capillary permeability. So just one thing to remember, all acute conditions, ice, all chronic conditions, heat. That's it. And if the patient is not coping up with ice or heat, just forget it. Don't do anything rather than just advising one. Okay, heat or ice, remember this. Now, we are coming to R-I-C. C is compression. How to stop bleeding wound? Compression is the key. How we stop the bleeding during our surgeries? Just compress it. Any vascular bleeding also, just not the capillary bleeding, even venous bleeding can be stopped with compression. Allow the clot to form it. So just press it for 5 to 7 minutes. And for veins, the venous blood flow from distal to proximal. So any injury here to the vein, press here so that the blood will not come. From distal to the injury, you press it, venous oozing will stop. Arterial, arteries run from proximal to distal. So any injury to an artery here, you should apply pressure to the proximal area and not the distal. So applying pressure proximal to the artery or to the artery will, and don't apply pressure with a huge amount of cotton, just a small gauze, and just identify from where the bleeding is there and just press it for 5 to 7 minutes. Even arterial bleed can stop. Never apply an artery forceps to a bleeding artery. Why? Because it gets crushed, and if you want to join it or repair it, it is very difficult for the vascular surgeon to join it if the edges are crushed, and difficult to mobilize the two things, because if some small amount is lost, you have to have a venous graft and then join in between, and that has more chances to again gets clotted. Okay, so never apply a artery clamp to a bleeding artery. Just press it for 5 to 7 things, and you can see in that image that it is elevated. So one hand is elevating it above the level of the heart, and second is giving compression. So both the things are important. If the patient is lying down, your lower limb should be elevated above the level of the heart so that the bleeding should stop, or if the arm is present, should be kept above the level of the heart to stop bleeding. So compression is important to stop bleeding. Now elevation. How to elevate upper limbs? How to elevate lower limbs? Elevation causes reduction in swelling. स्वेलिंग ही पाण्यासारखी असते आणि पाणी नेहमी तडाकडून उत्तराकडे वाहत असतं असं मी नेहमी सांगत असतो. तर इलिव्हेशन ऑफ लाईक दिस मीन्स युअर लिम्ब the distal most part should be the uppermost part, and the swelling will decrease like this. Okay, so always remember the upper limb should be rested like this. The boy is sitting there with a pillow and it is elevated. The most elevated portion will be the fingers. Now in lying down position also, you can keep 1 or 2 pillows on your chest and the arm should be elevated. For legs, the elevation should be like this. See, that pillow is particularly made for that patient to keep it elevated. Now, the limb elevation should be in lower limbs, 2 things. One thing, the knee should be bent and the heel should be free. Okay, 2 things. Heel should be free. Because of the pressure, heel can get a sore, and if the knee is not bent, there will be compression to the neurovascular below the knee, and you will have a much and much pain in the knee. So remember 2 things while elevating the legs. Now, the patient has come to us. We know the type of injury. We know the extent of injury. Now we have seen all these things. Now how to deal with these wounds? Wash, wash, and wash. So a washed wound has better chances to heal than just a contaminated sutured wound. Okay, so never ever hurry to just close a wound. Wash it thoroughly till the depth with some pressure. Like you can cut a small hole to the opening of the normal saline and give a pressure wash so that everything will be washed out. Debride if necessary. If there are dirty things, remove all these things. That is a washed wounds. So normal saline is the best thing to wash with. Now, in your OPD level, you are having a lot of chemicals like normal saline is there, ringer lactate is there, this is there. The preferred one is just normal saline. Forget it. Now, you are also having betadine, that is povidone iodine. You are having hydrogen peroxide. You are having spirit. You are having Usol. Where to use all these things? Now, directly hydrogen peroxide on the wound is not recommended. Okay, so if you want to wash a wound, my sequence will be first a pressure wash with normal saline. If the dirt is not coming out, you want some effervescent effect, add 2 to 4 drops of hydrogen peroxide. Not just you have to pour all the hydrogen peroxide in the wound. Okay, don't do that. It will cause more of a damage to the tissues or pain to the patient. So just few drops of hydrogen peroxide in a 10 cc of normal saline and just pressure with the syringe with the needle cut will give you enough washing. Now first NS, second NS with hydrogen, and then again NS, wash out all those the things which are coming out with the hydrogen peroxide effervescence. Okay. Now third, I will put povidone iodine if needed. Otherwise, in some areas which are closer to the eyes or joints, I will not put povidone iodine at all also. What is the concentration to be used? It should be 5% or less, and not more than 5% is needed for washing to any open wound. Okay. Now just dilute it to 5% or less and just wash it. Just wash it with povidone iodine also and wait for 2 minutes. The reaction time for povidone iodine is 2 minutes. So just pouring some povidone iodine and washing it with the normal saline will not help. Keep it for 2 minutes and again wash it with normal saline. Do not keep it inside the wound because it is a chemical thing. It will cause reaction and the healing will not be proper. Now spirit. Spirit is not recommended to any open wound. But when the patient comes to you afterwards, the surrounding area of the wound should be cleaned with spirit so that the normal pathogens of the skin will not grow there and go into the wound. So all these things can be used. Now what about Usol? Usol can be used inside the wound if there is a lot of slough coming out. To remove that slough, you should use the thing that is called as Usol. So the sequence should be normal saline first, copious, second, if needed hydrogen peroxide, then remove it with normal saline, povidone iodine if required, wash it with normal saline, and to last, just dress it. You can apply some povidone iodine ointment or just a dry dressing will be needed. That's it. Now you have washed the wound thoroughly, debrided it, the wound is good. Now what to do? Whether to close or not. Now mind it. If the wound cannot be having a approximating edges, you should close it. You should close it. If it is opening out, you should close it. But if there is incised wound and just with the dressing, if all the edges are approximating nicely, nothing doing, it heals normally. Now we are having 4 types of things available for closing the wounds. What are these? The first and foremost thing, sutures. Okay, so with a nylon you can use for skin sutures. Second thing is steri strips. There are available sterile strips. Just put a longitudinal stretch to the wound. The edges will be approximated. Just apply the strips and dress it. Finish. That will be there for 2 to 3 days. If there is exudation, that will cause the strips to wait and come out. So after 2 days, you can reapply it. Now, for very small wounds and you want a very cosmetic and no sutures at all, there is glue available. So just broke that glue tab, and the glue will come out. Just apply it and close it and dress it and forget it for 5 to 7 days. This is for small cuts to the children near or to the face or young females. Glue can be applied. Now staples. Staples are best used to the thick skins where it cannot evert or get inward. It is very less time consuming. You can just apply it within seconds and over. For head injuries, for injuries on limbs, not on hands and feet. Never apply on hands and feet because it will cause constriction to the edges and it will cause hampering blood supply to the edges and the wound will not heal properly. So areas where the blood supply is very good, like scalp, you can apply staples, but never to the fingers, never to the foot. It can cause problem with the wound healing. So these are the 4 things. Now the commonest thing, that is sutures. We will just elaborate how to suture and what are the types of suturing. So for skin suturing, we can have a simple, continuous, quick for a linear wound. Just go in and out and just stretch it. The wound is closed. Now simple, interrupted for irregular wounds. Many of the times the wounds are just having irregular shape and sizes. So to close every shape, you have to take interrupted sutures, which are just simple. Now there are mattress sutures, which are horizontal or vertical. Horizontal to be used for loose skin. Vertical mattress is good for thick or thin skin. And a continuous locking is secured so that it will not come off, or if one knot is slept off, there is locking so that it will not open up. So it is very secure. We can see in these images, the figure 1, see simple interrupted suture. Just go from one side, come from another side out and just tie it so that both the edges will just approximate. Do not make it too tight to having crush of those edges, because the edges are the things which should have a normal blood supply for healing. In the figure 3, you can see a vertical mattress suture where you are having double threads. This is more secure thing, and you are having a very good approximation of the subcutaneous tissue also and the skin also. So for healing, a mattress suture is better. We prefer this suture for all the surgical wounds to close. Now figure of 8 sutures, these are to approximate when you cannot get it proper approximation because of swelling. Just make it closer with the help of this figure of 8 sutures, so that in the second session you can close it properly. What is the correct method to suture it? See, there is the wound and you have to go from one side and come from another side. It should be equidistant so that the amount of skin you have taken in the suture will be equal, and see the approximation. You can see how to go in and out, and the approximation should be enough. There should not be any pressure. Tight suturing means good suturing. No, not at all. Just approximate it and forget it. You cannot heal skin. The body itself heals. You have to just approximate it. Now, if there is unequal distance and you are trying to stitch it, what will happen? Either the skin will have inversion, it will have problem, or the skin will have overlap. Again, that will have problem. Or if there is excessive tension to the skin, you can have crushing of the edges, and that will lead to the skin necrosis, and the healing will not be proper, and the scar will be thick enough. Okay, so avoid excessive tension, avoid unequal distances. The correct method should be equidistance in between the sutures and in between the two entry and exit points, so that it will be approximated. That's it. Cosmetic sutures. If females, especially, they are very much fond of cosmesis. So cosmetic sutures to be applied in case of females, in case of facial injuries, in case of children, so that there will not be a scar face for whole of the life. If you doesn't know this cosmetic suturing, you should refer that patient to someone who knows the cosmetic suture. You can see that the suture line is just making a paper thin wound scar, just a paper thin. No scars of the sutures or anything. It is subcuticularly stitched. The knots are far away from the edges of the wound, and it is just a paper thin scar. So it is advisable in case of facial injuries and some who is very much active cosmetically. Okay. Now, wait or refer. This is the biggest dilemma every OPD consultant is having. Confuse या गया हूँ भगवान, क्या करूँ इसका? इसको रहने दो मेरे पास, एक्सरे के लिए भेजूं, कंसल्टेंट के पास भेजूं, क्या करूँ मैं इसका? So ये confusion अभी आज अपन दूर करने की कोशिश करेंगे. Wait or refer. Shall this patient should be waiting here, or we will refer this to that point or some another time? Okay. Now, in case of spinal injury, cervical spine, thoracic spine, lumbosacral spine, if the patient is moving all the four limbs, no bony tenderness to the spine, no sensory motor or bowel bladder deficit, just brace it and the patient can wait. Okay, just brace it. So for cervical spine, you can give a soft cervical brace. For thoracic and lumbar spine, you can give a Taylor's brace or a LS brace, and the patient can wait for investigation or to be referred. But if in doubt, if you are having a doubt that this patient may have something, always better to refer. Spinal injuries. Okay. Now limb injuries, upper limbs, just see for the deformity. If the limb is not deformed, the neurovasculars are intact. You are seeing that the vessels are having good pulsations. The neurological structures are intact. The sensations are intact. The movements are normal and equal on both the sides. Do the primary management, whatever it is, washing of the wound, dressing of the wound, closure of the wound, and the patient can wait before you can investigate or refer. In case of lower limbs, if the patient came walking, there are less chances of having. Okay. So in case of lower limbs, if the patient is coming walking or bed bearing, if the patient can bed bear, there is hardly any big fracture. A small fracture cannot be ruled out, but if the patient is walking, there is no major fracture, don't worry. Neurovasculars are intact, movements normal and equal on both the sides. Do the primary management and the patient can wait. So if a patient comes with an ankle sprain, or if the patient is walking, bed bearing, there is no neurovascular problems. So you can advise ice, give some analgesics for 2 days. If still the pain and swelling doesn't decreases, then advise for x-rays or refer. There is always a dilemma. To the point you should prescribe an x-ray or not, or the patient can wait. So if the patient is walking and can wait there, there is no instability, you can wait or just send him for the X-rays. Okay. Now these type of injuries, thoracic and abdominal injuries, there is a lot of important structure inside the thoracic and abdominal cavities. Mind you, do not wait. Do not wait. Always investigate or refer the patients. These type of patients can deteriorate in no time because the internal bleedings you cannot see or you cannot control. All these patients, you are monitoring the vitals, but the vitals can go haywire in case of thoracic and abdominal injuries. So always be aware of these kind of injuries because they can deteriorate in no time. So always investigate the thoracic and abdominal injuries. No waiting for this kind of injuries. Now you have done all the primary treatments, splinted everything. What X-rays to advise? You are suspecting some fracture. Now what X-rays? So there is always confusion what X-ray I should advise. So to the bone or to the joint, as a general rule, you can just say epilateral. Cervical spine epilateral, LS spine epilateral, shoulder epilateral. Then you can have forearm epilateral, elbow epilateral, wrist epilateral. Only in case of hand and foot, you can advise AP and oblique. All other epilateral. There are some specific views to other fractures, but they are seldom used and it is for specialized things. But as a general rule, you can advise the X-rays as epilateral, and hand and oblique, you can advise AP and oblique views, hand and foot, because in a lateral view, all the bones will be, there will be superimposition and you will not see anything. Whenever in doubt, ask someone who knows, either a radiologist, either an orthopedician, ask someone, here there is a wound, here there is injury, what X-rays I should advise. If by chance the X-rays are wrong, the patient will get annoyed to take another X-ray for the same injury and he will have a wrong opinion about you or the other one who is advising other X-rays. So rather than doing wrong X-rays, it is always better. Whenever doubt, ask. There are many consultants who are there who are always there to help you out. So always in doubt, you should ask a radiologist or orthopedic surgeon for this type. Here there is injury. What X-ray I should advise? Now it is very difficult to understand all the X-rays and all the fractures, but an easy trick how to read: follow just the cortices and watch for the discontinuity or break in the continuity. So these kind of fractures, you can just trace out the cortices. The break in the continuity means there is a fracture. So these fractures are very easy to understand and to know, but not always. There can be some fractures which are tricky to understand, which are tricky to see, and these are not so obvious to see. Just for example, in case of children, just see this X-ray. Both the radius and ulna are fractured, but they are green stick fractures. The children's bone are like a green stick. हिरव्या काडी सारखी असतात. हिरवी काडी तुम्ही तोडू नाही शकत. ती वाकते तुटण्याच्या आधी. जरी याला फ्रॅक्चर म्हणत असलं तरी त्याच्यामध्ये जास्त दूर गेलेले नसतात. एक कॉर्टेक्स तुटलेला असतो, एक कॉर्टेक्स फक्त आणि फक्त वाकलेला असतो. So there is bending of one cortex and one cortex is broken. But you can see the deformity and the alignment. If ulna is not straight and if the radius bow is not maintained, there is a fracture. So in case of any doubt, just ask someone rather than just saying that yala fracture watat nahi. Don't comment like this that there is fracture or there is no fracture. So if in case of any doubt, you can ask someone. That will be very helpful to you, to the patient, and for the further management. Okay. So in case of any doubt, you can just ask. Now the red flag signs. Which are the patients while treating in the OPD levels, they can give you trouble in identifying the situation, treating the situation, and managing the situation. First is pediatric patient. They cannot tell you the exact where the injury is. They cannot tell you the signs, symptoms. They cannot tell you the whole history also. So pediatric patients, be aware. Any swelling and loss of movement should be investigated to avoid the injury to the growing parts. Now, geriatric patients, they are old patients. They may not have that much of memory. They can again tell you wrong history or no history at all, but they are having some fractures. Third thing is patient under influence of alcohol or drugs. These patients who are under influence, they are James Bond. They can tell you anything. You just write whatever from your findings are, advise x-rays or something, and keep it in a carbon copy just to show when he comes without any influence. Okay, so under influence patient, again, they cause very much trouble. Now, fourth type of patients are patients with no relatives or huge amount of relatives. Patient with no relatives, again, you cannot tell anything to that patient or to the relative what has happened and what is to be done. And if there are more relatives than your staff, then it is better to refer these patients because they can cause nuisance. Nowadays, it is a big problem. So patient with no relatives or patient who is having a huge amount of relatives, you should be aware of these things. And always remember, we always study what to do, but always there should be in mind what not to do. If you haven't done anything, it is okay. But if you have done something that is not to be done, there is always a problem. So always remember what not to do in case of traumatic patients. So I think this concludes many of the practical aspects in our day-to-day life. And I'll thank all of you for the patient hearing, and I would love to answer all your queries, and I would like to thank PDA and all the coordinators to invite me and have an interactive sessions. Very thank you.
Sir, there is a question from Dr. Meghna Karande.
Yes. Meghna Karande, nowadays DT vaccines are available. So should we go, should we give DR or only TT vaccine? Yes. DT vaccines are good for the pediatric patients. For adults, only TT is sufficient. Diphtheria is a disease of childhood. Diphtheria in adult patient is very rare. So not necessarily you should give DT to adult patients. Just the pediatric patients who cannot, who is not having a DT, what do you call that? 5 years and 10 years booster doses. If they haven't taken it, then and then only go for DT vaccine rather than just tetanus. Any other question? There is another question. If the stapler wound got infected, how to proceed further? Any wound how the wound gets infected, that means the wound is contaminated within 6 hours and the antibiotics hasn't reached within 6 hours. So just you are seeing a wound and just closing that with stapler will not do. Wash it with normal saline thoroughly, debride it so that the dead tissues will go off and then staple it. That wound will not get infected. If you have taken all the precautions, still it gets infected, just remove the staples, debride it and wash it and keep it open for secondary suturing. A suturing within 6 hours is called as primary suturing. 6 to 12 hours is called as delayed primary suturing, and after 24 hours of time, it is called as secondary suturing. All these are different things.
There is another question, sir, please.
Please. Question? What is emergency in fracture? Any fracture which is having deformity, if the limb is deformed, first thing, if there is neurovascular compromise, if there is sensation compromise, if the distal movements are compromised, these fractures are emergency, should be sent for investigations, or if it is possible to refer to the appropriate surgeon or orthopedic surgeon or whosoever is treating that specialty. You should tell. Some fractures, like if there is a distal end radius fracture, that patient is coming to you at 10 p.m. in the evening. If there is the distal neurovascular is intact, just splint it, give ice fomentation. Till morning, he can wait. Till morning, he can wait. Any ankle sprain, if he comes with a weight bearing, he can have no pain on weight bearing, you can wait. But if the patient is having deformity and if the patient is not able to walk, that means it is an emergency fracture. You should send it for investigation.
Or what should we do for in cases of burns? Many a times we are confused whether to be dressing it or not.
Burns are first degree burns, second degree burns, or third degree burns, depending upon the depth of burn. But these extensive burns will not come to OPD. But a small burn or a silencer burn during RTA, what to do? Wash it thoroughly with water. Apply water. This is the only thing that will reduce the pain. Wash it water, clean it. Then superficial burns which are more painful, apply silver sulfadiazine ointment, and on that put a paraffin gauze, and you can sufficiently close it. Burn wounds are per se, they are sterile wounds because the skin is burned because of temperature only. So all the bacteria there are primarily got killed. So primarily they won't get infected. Secondary infections are common in burn patients. So to avoid that, sulfadiazine is best for burns. Just wash it, dry it, apply silver sulfadiazine, a paraffin gauze, and dress it loosely. Doesn't require very hard. And as the wound is drying, just keep a dry dressing with a paraffin gauze. Paraffin gauze is must in case of primary burns or small burns, because reapplying or doing the consecutive dressings will be very much painful if you are removing the dressing on a burn thing. First degree burns are superficial burns and they are very painful. So paraffin gauzes should be there in your OPD.
So in general, at what interval we should do the dressings?
For post-operative wounds, my protocol would be day 2 or 3 first dressing, wound check, because the dressing has the first dressing has done the in the operation theater. No need to open it for 2 to 3 days. So first dressing 2 to 3 days. Then after 5 days, that is day 7, and stitch removal at day 15. For all the surgical wounds, 3 dressings are more than sufficient. Now, the frequency is determined by the contamination and the oozing out. If more oozing from the wound, if the wound is soaked or having a lot of smell and soakage, do it frequently. Even twice a day can be used if there is lot of contamination and pus pouring. But a wound which is not having that much contamination or pus, you can do it alternate day or twice weekly is sufficient for all the post-traumatic wounds. Twice weekly is sufficient. Wound check should be done earlier if there is wound soakage, there is increased pain or increased pus pouring. Okay, so these 3 things, smell, 4 things. If all these things are there, do it earlier, or otherwise alternate day or 2 times per week is sufficient till the wound heals.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for this nice and informative lecture. So please be with us for second session. It will take only 10 to 15 minutes. Now we are moved towards second session. DigiShield software company has developed an app only for doctors. This is very useful to us in this scenario It is introduced by Mr. Dipen Mehta. I request Mr. Dipen Mehta, please demo your app, sir.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Yogesh, for such a wonderful, knowledgeable session. Thank you, PDA, for giving us such an opportunity to present DigiShield. Mr. Sanket Barale is our founder and chairman of the DigiShield. Mr. Sanket Barale is our chairman of DigiShield and is also the founder and CEO of FigMD, Pune-based company. It's like Google-based. It's a Google-based company which manages 40% of US citizen data. So we have built a software which is a DigiShield. It's available in Play Store for doctors, like in Play Store as well as in Android. I will just show you. Yeah. Currently, like doctors are very risky in front line of the patient. The doctor are very fear, like they don't know like if the next patient is positive or not. So doctor worries about the to open their clinic with safety and effectively. So even patients are worried to visit the clinic due to the risk of COVID. So in this condition, the biggest question is like in front of healthcare system, how doctors can open their clinic safely and effectively and risk-free. So accordingly, we have created the app. It's an AI-powered solution which helps the doctor and the patient to reduce the risk of the COVID-19, in which doctors can book the appointment through online to the patient, and patient has to just fill the symptoms and details through the chat, and the symptoms can insert the symptoms, and accordingly the doctor will get the result of the patient, like the patient is of high risk, low risk, or of medium risk. So the application is available free for the doctors to download. I will just show you the small demo of how it's work. Doctor has to just sign up, has to use their registered mobile number and with OTP. Here is the list of the appointments of the patients, and you can see that how the patient is of COVID-19 high, medium. So doctor just need to fill the patient's details. After filling the patient details, the appointment has been booked. The patient will receive the SMS link in which patient will has to fill some symptoms. 17 parameters are there. Its location, everything has been calculated through our AI-based solution. After that, accordingly, doctor can do the teleconsultation or video consultation. Once the consultation has been done, doctor can upload the prescription by clicking the pictures of the their prescription, and patient will receive the soft copy. In the patients tab, you can see the number of patients has been visited for the doctors. After that, even doctor can see the patient's history and previous medical records. Just need to click on the first name, last name, or through mobile number. You can see the number of visits has been visited by the patient. Once the even doctor can send the reminder SMS follow-up visit. So like a patient will receive the soft copy of the SMS. So that it's a totally contactless. We have contactless payment, teleconsultation, video consultation, AI-based COVID risk assessment solution. So everything is available free of cost. Doctor can just download from Google Play, Google Store, and App Store. So like if you can have the more details by logging on www.digishield.me, or you can also contact us on 77680-34400.
Is it over, sir?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Now I request CME in charge, Dr. Jawarkar sir, for vote of thanks.
Am I audible, madam?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Yogesh so much, sir. for giving such a nice and informative lecture on primary management of trauma patient in a very simple and lucid language. The slides and images presented on the screen was very good. I hope the lecture given by him will be very useful to all our GPs into their day-to-day practice. Really, it was a good interaction section. Also, thanks to Mr. Dipin Mehta, CEO, DigiSeal Software. Also, thanks to Alkem Pharma for sponsoring this online webinar lecture. Once again, thank you, Dr. Somavanshi, sir. Thank you all for attending this webinar, online webinar lecture in a large number. Take care, all of you. Stay safe and stay healthy. Now, I request our CME in charge, Dr. Sharvari Avaskar, madam, to felicitate our today's speaker, Dr. Yogesh Somavanshi, sir. I also request PDA President, Dr. Anil Jangde, sir, Secretary, Dr. Ramesh Mohitia, sir, today's coordinator, Dr. Sagar Mande, sir, and I myself, to join for the salutation. Thank you.